Let's start a podcast about our mental health for no good reason why. Let's call it Mind Cake.
Hello, baby.
Jesus Christ.
Welcome to Mind Cake
Mind Cake.
with him,
Lee Crompton and her.
Gail Robertson.
Hurrah! You're back again. I think the intros are much more entertaining since you've come on board.
I'm feeling the pressure because I can't do the accents.
And again, one take, boom, all done.
Yes, looks like
Maybe-
giggle from one of us.
Maybe it's a female thing because Izzy can do it first time as well.
I think you two just are too comfortable. You're used to doing it. I'm feeling the pressure of being the guest once more.
I try and put him off with my funny faces as well, but he now doesn't look at the camera when we do the intros because he knows I'm generally like trying to put him off.
Do you know, Paul's actually as well, he's an easier laugh than I am.
Easier to make laugh.
He is easier to make laugh. I don't laugh very easily. I find things funny, but I sort of find it funny in my head. And in my head, I'm going, that is very funny, but I don't laugh.
You don't externalize that laugh.
No, I can do, but often, yeah, I'm a harder laugh than he is.
Tough crowd. Tough crowd. Okay, so we're here with Gail once again for part 2 of Allison Mandell, seeing as how in true waffling style, I've only managed to ask one question, I think, in the first 45 minutes. So here, coming up for your ears, is the rest of Allison Mandell. Yes, I should say, I didn't mention, you're in Vermont.
I am.
So it's 9 o'clock here now, and it must be 4 o'clock with you?
It is.
Yeah.
Here.
What's the weather like in Vermont?
Vermont is a dreamy place.
Isn't it?
Where people, it's very beautiful and very peaceful, and the weather is gorgeous, and we're surrounded by green mountains, and things are great. I've lived in Los Angeles, I've lived in Philadelphia, I've lived in New York. Vermont is a real dream. So
I'm gonna Google it and click on images when we finish just to see what Vermont looks like.
we do things like maple syrup and bike riding.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, we're adorable. If you're exhausted and shit has been rough and then you move to Vermont, you're like, we're gonna be okay.
You'll be okay, okay.
Yeah, it's a tiny little alcove of peace. So
Nice.
yeah, it's quite nice.
Sounds idyllic.
It is. It is.
I'm going to try and ask another question off my list before the internet breaks down.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I'm asking this question mainly for me, and we've kind of touched on it before, but how do we achieve or create more balance in our lives? And the reason I ask that is because, again, you've touched on it before, that I'm one of these people that if I'm not, that my wife will say to me, I'm incapable of switching off. I cannot switch off. If we go away, so we went away to this retreat a month ago, and it was in this Scottish glen in the borders, in a caravan, but like an oldie worldy traveler's caravan with a copper bath outside that was heated in the middle of this meadow. And I'm like, I was like tapping my foot going, well, but I'm not achieving anything. Unless I'm achieving something, like even sleeping, I'm better with the sleep now. But
Well,
even
you're
sleeping, I'm like,
more
I can't go to sleep because if I had 6 hours sleep rather than 8 hours sleep, that's 2 hours I could be doing something else and achieve. I cannot switch off.
Yeah.
Question. So my question was, so how do we change? How do we achieve or create more balance? So firstly, we knew chuck the phone in the bin.
Yeah.
But then, like you say, because we're all in the capitalist washing machine,
yeah,
then we can't do that because then we're missing out. We're not getting the news, we're not getting the emails, not getting information immediately in our faces. But yeah, I don't know, other than put your phone in the bin, what do you reckon?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a practical part first that I want to acknowledge, which is that you have been, again, I'm not some crazy conspiracy theorist. I just know the science around this, which is that we are in an incredibly unnatural amount of notifications and alarms and basic input. And all of that input gets our nervous system going. So on a nervous system level, we are all, unless we're in like dorsal, which is like shut down, most of us are really hyper activated. And we are going from stimulus to stimulus. So the stimulation that we are getting as human beings right now is wildly and insanely ridiculous for what we were built for. So we have to acknowledge that part because, you know, we have trillions of dollars being spent to capture our attention. And it is from everything. It's not just your phone. It's the way that we now interact where we are just so bombarded. So I have to acknowledge that because it's really, really important. And if we don't acknowledge it, then we're going to wonder why we don't like shutting off.
Yeah.
So right away, I know because you're alive and you're doing a podcast, which means you have the internet, that your system is used to getting constant stimulus. And when you don't have it, there's a withdrawal. So when you went to this magical place, you were in withdrawal.
I wasn't, it didn't, I found it really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's withdrawal. No one likes withdrawal. Oh my God. So your literal system is like, where is it? 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 And there's something really satisfying about having constant stimulation. There's a joke that we could both make. But there's something really satisfying about constant stimulation in that it gives you something to respond to feel like you have control over your situation.
Yeah.
So when I get an email, if you feel totally bombarded and your days are just like nuts and you're super behind, but you get an email, you can respond to that email because now you feel like you did something, you made your impact, you're in control, and you showed your worth, you showed your value. And what's funny is that when you keep emailing, you keep getting emails back. So like you're never actually getting ahead. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that everyone stop answering their emails, but that's such a myth of productivity to like answer your emails before the end of the day because you'll just get another one.
Yeah.
So there's the element of control. It feels really good to be able to be interacting constantly. I have a feeling that your job requires you to have the answers for a lot of things. And that's got to feel good, especially if you've been doing it for 30 years. You have a lot of experience. When you're a dad, you have to have the answers for a lot of things, you know. So there's that. It feels good to the ego, and the ego mind is what's running the show most of the time. The level underneath that, in terms of what we do, and this is where it's challenging, and this is why I think productivity hacks are bullshit. Even the great ones like Oliver Berkman are still kind of about how do we kind of dominate our days, right? And I really do think that there is something in you. Like the easiest question is, what are you resisting? What's the last thing you want to do? Is it sit still with yourself? That might be a great thing to start with. Why do you feel the need to be in control? What happens if you're not in control? Why do we feel the need to be productive? Because we think if we're being productive, then we're more valuable. If we're more valuable, we belong more. If we belong more, we're safer. And if we're safer, we can be happy. So, you know, there's a lot there, right? I think that for me and my experience and the work that I like to focus on, a really great question is, what do you want? Not what do you think you want? Because a lot of us think we kind of want these things. But if you follow it to the end, what do you want? What do you want your life to look like? What do you want your life to feel like? You're at a fulcrum point right now, which is why you started this podcast. You can feel these other parts of yourselves that got booped awake with your diagnosis that were like, wait a minute, what the fuck? If I want to have the time to do this too, right? So you have these other parts of you that are showing up. So if you ask yourself, when you're very quiet, away from your phone and away from other people who could be getting your attention, What do I want the rest of my life to look like? Truly, truly.
Mhm.
What do I want it to feel like? How do I want, you know, in the beginning, if I were to ask myself this, I would have said, I want to feel powerful. I want to have impact. Like I was like really, I was like 20. I was like, I want to have impact. I want to make shows that change people or whatever. And then there was another part of me that was like, also like, I really want quiet moments. I want to be in nature. I want to have moments where I'm actually present with my future children.
Mhm.
I want to learn how to be a partner in a way that is much larger than getting my own needs met. And I had these other kind of feelings that came up. They weren't even thoughts, they were feelings. I want to know what peace feels like. Do you know what peace feels like in your body?
Mm,
Actual peace.
not really, no.
These are crazy, really crazy hard questions.
No, but then, like you say, that's not what's ingrained in us. I mean, again, you touched on it earlier in that in society, we are told you go to school, you work hard, you get good grades, you get a good job, you earn lots of money, you buy a big house, that's what you do. At no point does anyone say, oh, and by the way, you might want to chill the fuck out sometimes.
Yeah, they don't. And it's up to you. What's unfortunate is that almost all of us find that through rock bottom. We don't find it because we were like, we had a really good day
Hmm.
and I'm going to quit my job. Like, that's not, you know what I mean? We're usually like, I can't stand this anymore. I don't want to live like this, or something scary happens.
Hmm.
So, what I think the actionable part of that is that you cannot know what you really want until you can be with yourself enough to start to allow yourself to feel it. So, like the first thing for everyone, I think is really helpful. If mornings really don't work for you, okay. Mornings are great because you're still connected to the part of yourself that's much quieter. It's much harder to turn the volume back down after a day to
After a
be able,
day, yeah.
yeah. But people's lives are different. But ideally, you set aside a part of your day to just meet yourself. That is like the most basic thing for people 100 years ago. They had a lot of parts of their day where they did that. They had a long journey to work, or they had, to make dinner, which took like 4 hours, where they had to start their own fire and shit like that. So
Hmm.
that was used to be very natural. We now have to carve that out.
Yeah.
So to me, setting aside time to really sit with yourself is really helpful.
Hmm.
If you are someone who has a lot of trauma in your history, or meditation is actually so uncomfortable, the sitting with yourself does not have to be on a meditation pillow. Go on a walk, move, but be with yourself. And then, the work that I do is usually finding out, getting really clear on what you want your life to look like. That's at the end of the day, the most important thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You figure out what you want your life to look like, and then you actually take steps that are supportive and not burning your life down
Hmm.
to get to that place. And that, to me, it's very complicated because we have decades of learning how to self-betray for the sake of productivity.
Yeah.
Point. And so that looks a little differently for everyone. And I think a lot of the work that I do is finding out what belief systems that we have in place that we employ all the time, that block us from doing the things we know are good for us.
Hmm.
For instance, if I do something good for me, then someone will think that I am not good enough to do X, Y, and Z. That's a big one for caretakers. Or if I do this thing, it's going to be a waste of time, and I will lose kind of, this thing to these people or to my job or what have you. I also just think that when we do things in the immediate, it satisfies the immediate at the cost of the long term.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so when we really get clear on what we want long term, it's much easier to act upon. But a lot of us don't ask that question because it's very uncomfortable, because it means we have to make changes that make us feel really afraid.
Hmm.
And so if you were to sit here right now and say, okay, I know this thing. I know that I want more of this. And I know that that means that I might need more of this. Then starting to ask yourself ways that you can slowly bring that into your life to create an opening. And if you can't turn off, trying to turn off in a way that is really comfortable for you. that is also productive. So if you're someone who likes to walk, for instance, going on a walk without your phone for 15 minutes a day, watch what happens. It's crazy, the subtle changes. But for those of us who love to do a lot of shit all the time, we're like, give me all the steps. I want to do all the things right now. I'm going to do I'm going to hit this so hard. And that's how you know it's not going to work, because it's still that part of you that just wants to be like, bam, 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 bam.
Well, this is
So,
the thing. Yeah, I don't want to go. Right. So to switch off, I'm going to go for a run, but I'm going to wear my Garmin because I'm going to run as fast as I can. I'm going to time 1 kilometer. Or
yeah,
whatever it is. I'm not switching off. It still has to be like it was as much as I could do not to take my laptop with me, because I thought, well, I'll just do some. Because again, talking about social media, and one thing I don't like doing about this podcast is I think it's really helpful, the conversations that we're having, that people listen to that. And so you want to get that out there. But the amount of time it takes and the amount of effort to do social media posts. So I'm thinking, I'll go to this wellness place and I'll have time because there's no kids and there's no work. So now I'm going to take my laptop and I'm going to spend my me time, my chill time, putting posts out on social media or sending people emails. And I'm like, what are you doing?
yeah.
It's just, it's nonsense.
What I think, if it can be distilled down, because I know I can be quite verbose about this, if it can be distilled down, rather than thinking of work-life balance as this balance between your work and your life, something that I think about it is who do you belong to the most? Is it you, or is it the outside world?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can learn to belong to you more than the outside world, you will connect with people more. You will be infinitely more direct with your communication. You will call in the people who are meant for you. All of those things will happen as a natural byproduct. And that's what's frustrating, is it is inherently spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to be spiritual. But you do, because spirituality is also about purpose. Why are you here? Why are you unhappy? It's all related to that. And so at the end of the day, it's really about, are you connected with the thing that animates you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because when you start to connect with it, it is like a drug. Just like the internet can be like a drug.
Yeah.
But it fulfills you, and it will start to shift the way you live your life.
Mm-hmm.
But that belonging, that return to who you are, that you had to unlearn when you needed to belong, when you do the opposite and you commit to being with yourself and with your life,
Mm-hmm.
that will put everything in perspective, where then you will know if it's worth it to go and spend a bunch of time on fucking Canva or something trying to put out a post for your podcast. You know what I mean? Then you will it shifts, but your days don't feel crunched anymore, because you have these moments of timelessness where you were with yourself.
Yeah.
So it sounds hippy dippy. In some ways it is, but also it is the inverse of hippy dippy to be like, my life feels like I'm chasing time and I never have a second to myself. And I'm really worried that if I don't make a change 20 years from now, my kids will hate me, or my wife will leave me, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's also spiritual. It's just the fear side. It's the absence of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that to me and that's why you can't sell a book on it, because it's about, how are you with yourself?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do you find yourself within yourself? And that's why it's individual.
Right. I don't know. I'm going to scan these questions because I think we've organically probably covered most of the things
I love it.
we're going to talk about. Right. Well, one of the questions I've got, right. Do you know what? This is giving me goosebumps, by the way, because one of the questions I will ask is, how do people get in contact with you to do a session? Because I'm all over this. So how do people contact? How does it
Yeah,
work? Do you do like an introductory session, or how can you do it remotely?
I do it remotely. One, because I live in fucking Vermont. No one knows where that is. I'm in the mountains. And also because I really like to connect first. It's a very, it's a vulnerable thing. You're like looking into who you are and what you really want. And these are things that you've spent a lot of energy and a lot of time ignoring.
Hmm.
And to open them up, I want it to feel good. So I always do a free call in the beginning where we just talk about it. And I always end up giving all kinds of things like this is how we start. And this is the first thing I see is because the other side of what I do is when I was an executive producer, I made crazy schedules, like schedules for like 14 different teams that converged in 3 different locations with 4 transpo units and like 45 cameras like that. So I love scheduling too. So the first thing I do is a call to make sure that we're on the same page and we look at schedules and we start. And then I have a finding time program that we do. And that's all on my website, which is just myname.com. So it's AllisonMandell.com. And there's you can just schedule a clarity call. And that's on my regular homepage or on the Finding Time program page.
Cool. Okay.
I
Well,
love
what we have a link tree. So I will put a link to your website on our link tree, and then I'll be giving you a call myself.
Well, I look forward to it. This is my favorite subject because I think this is the thing that is so common. And I cannot think of a greater fight and a greater challenge than making our lives more valuable to us and not
Absolutely. Yeah.
profit machine and not to the parts of us that operate out of a lot of fear and are really tired.
Mhm.
So I love it. And I'm so grateful that you had me on.
Oh, I don't think we've finished yet. Are you got time? Can we do another?
Yeah, keep going. Let's do
I've
this.
not had my dinner yet. So my wife said, well, I said, I won't be any more than an hour. Well, I think how do we change careers when it's such a giant part of us? And we kind of touched on that.
I mean, I can say something about that if you want, because
Yeah,
that's
cool.
really
Well, why don't I read the questions? And if you think there's anything you want to add to stuff that we've said already, let's go for it. So, yeah, we've spoken about this before, but how do you change careers when it's such a giant part of yourself and who you are?
slowly.
Slowly.
I just feel like I have to say that because there's a lot of people who have a really bad day and they're like, fuck it. I'm going to tell everyone that this is terrible and this and this and this and that. And, or they're just like, I got to quit and I have to save my sanity. And I feel that on such a deep level. And also, a couple things. One, security is a real thing.
Yeah.
And really protecting your future self and giving yourself the freedom and the support to make smart choices so you don't have to take another shitty job because you ran out of money. Really important. The practical side of spirituality. I feel like a lot of people give advice of like, just move to an off-grid alpaca farm and it'll be great. And you're like, question number 1, how can you be on an off-grid alpaca farm and be making this Instagram post? And question number 2 is like, what are you talking about, right? Like so many people give this advice of like, burn it down and start new.
Mhm.
I think that if we don't actually have a relationship with ourselves or we've gotten really clear about what we want, we cannot come up with an exit strategy that has our goals in mind. So the order of operations for that move is super important. So I always want to say that because there's part of us that will do almost anything to stop the horrible feeling, the dread, the angst, the fury of our work.
Yep.
And also doing it intelligently and with a plan that actually has your horizon line, the one that you really want in mind, will be the reason why something works beautifully or why you repeat your situation and it's just a different company.
No, absolutely. And that, like you say, we generally have those epiphanies when you've hit rock bottom, either work is just so shit or
Yeah.
you've been diagnosed with cancer and you have that, right, fuck it. I'm gonna go and be a sheep farmer in rural
Yeah.
Wales rather than, well, hang on a minute. As nice as that, it doesn't sound very nice at all, actually, but whatever that thing is, yeah, having that knee-jerk reaction isn't necessarily the smartest way to go about things.
No. And it often actually isn't what you really want.
No,
Leaving is, but the way you leave.
but the way you do it, yeah.
And
Yeah.
to do it with a feeling where you look back on it and you think, okay, I'm actually really proud of how I did that, and I did that with integrity,
Mhm.
and I'm better than they deserved, and that makes me feel good, which is usually not how we feel in the moment.
Yeah.
We're like, I'm gonna give them exactly what they deserve. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to say that because it's a huge misconception, and it doesn't feel great when you hear it because you want that satisfaction, but
Mhm. Be more measured.
yeah, and doing the work that will greet you. Like you
Mhm.
have to do this work of actually asking yourself if you want to have a life that lives up to what you wanted. At some point, you have to ask yourself what you really want. Now, you can do it right now when your bills are being paid more or less and you're at this job, or you can do it after you have this big reaction and this a lot of drama and it kind of feels really good because you feel really righteous. And then at some point, you're still going to have that conversation
Yeah,
with
yeah.
yourself. Now you blew up all your references and you missed all these other opportunities. You know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
just a thought, we can be strategic about it and have it go even better and
Mhm.
still be as satisfying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right. What else have I got on my list? How do you adapt your approach for clients with different backgrounds and lifestyles? Because you must get a lot of people that have come from, different strokes for different folks.
That one's really easy because the program is designed by the person that I'm working with.
Cool. Okay.
So it's not like I have a thing and hopefully you fit into it. The way that it starts is let's look at your schedule and let's start to ask the questions and do the exercises and the reflections that would allow us to really clearly discern what you want in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and then what that actually looks like today.
Hmm.
So everyone's kind of North Star is different. Having said that, I think I hold or I attempt to hold with a lot of compassion and as much awareness as I can muster that work-life balance is different for a white man versus a woman of color who
Yeah.
no one is exploited more than she
Hmm.
is. And so our experiences of how to strategize and work tactfully in the workforce is going to be different because a
Hmm.
lot of us come with different privileges and then different systems of oppression.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that everyone isn't under a system of oppression because we all are. And that's something that I love doing when it comes to individualizing because I freelance. I've done so many shows. I've done so many different projects. I've done as a consultant for a variety of different types of companies as well. So that dexterity in really making a unique plan for each person is second nature to me, because it has to be, because the whole point of this is that it's about honoring the exact place where someone is,
Hmm.
what they need, what they're reacting to, and what will actually make them happy versus what everyone is so used to, which is what should make them happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love the question because what it, I think, gives an opportunity to is to say that inherently to do this work well is to honor that every single situation, even if two people are from the same socioeconomic background, fill out the census the same way, look the same
Yeah.
way, they're going to have wildly different needs.
The answers comes from them rather than you.
Yeah.
Okay. What other questions have we got? Here's one. Okay. How do you see the future of work-life balances, especially post-pandemic, with more of us potentially working from home?
Ooh. Oh, I love this one. I think that working from home has so many benefits and so many terrible downfalls. I think it's like the best thing in the world because it in some ways gives more freedom. And, people, especially people who have health conditions or disabilities, can really be so much more comfortable.
Yeah.
The disadvantages are striking. The porousness of our boundaries. If you work from home, I'm going to guess that you start your day by checking your email. You're thinking about the emails you're going to write while you brush your teeth and you make your breakfast. Sometimes you might even say, I like working really early in the morning because that's when people don't get back to me and I can work by myself, which is just like, oh my God. I mean, I love that for you, but only if you can stop working at like 3 p.m. then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that, I mean, it's a really big question because then it can also get into generations. Like Gen Z is going to come in and just be like, fuck you guys. I'm not doing anything. This is ridiculous. So we'll see what happens with the next generation. But for those of us who are millennials and above, I think we are going to have a breaking point where I think everyone's going to have their own version of a breaking point where they have to really redefine what it's worth,
Hmm.
how it's worth it to them, and how to structure their days in a way that cultivates peace and well-being within them. And my hope is that, because this is what sucks, is like we're having this conversation and it's falling on us to kind of discern how do we boundary our day. But the other side of this, and one of the reasons why I love working with executives and such, is I'm like, you make the rules,
Yeah,
make
yeah.
it better for your team. Like, oh my God, you're a manager. Tell your team that they're not allowed to respond to you after 7 p.m.
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
Be the good guy,
uh-huh.
and 4-day work weeks, I think, are becoming really popular because they've learned that 4-day work weeks actually create more productivity. It's disgusting that we have to be like, joy is important because we hear it brings more profit. That's not great. We don't
Hmm.
love that's how that came to be, but whatever, we'll take it, you know?
But
So my
the flip side of that, I guess, is I've tried a 4-day week, and all I ended up doing was getting paid 4/5 of my salary, but working basically condensed hours.
Well, that's the messed up part. The only way that 4-day work weeks work is if you get paid the same.
Yeah.
So that's the only way that works. Saying
Mm.
that people, if you're a wage laborer, it doesn't work because now you're just because you're working less, but the cost of everything just went up. And
Yeah.
so you're just inherently more fucked. It's just a
Yeah.
new flavor of being screwed over. I think that my hope is that there is a realization. I mean, post-capitalism is here in its ways. It exists, in my opinion, and my understanding of it, alongside capitalism, and it's a transition. So even the fact that we're having this conversation, I think, is a really exciting, shining light. I also think that capitalism is inherently related to racism. They fuel each other. White supremacy and capitalism are best friends and deeply related. And so my hope is that this whole kind of conversation and plane of discussion is shifting. In terms of the practical, what is about to happen and what do I hope and what do I see? I think that I think some people are going to work more and more and more, and they're going to get sicker and sicker and sicker
Hmm.
because I think that's just what we see.
Yeah.
I mean, we can see it in other trends when it comes to healthcare and the medicine that we're taking for weight loss instead of holding food companies accountable for poisoning us and the masses, things like that. So I think there's a part of the population that unfortunately will get sicker and sicker, and hopefully some of that will transition into a more peaceful way of living. But I think people are also getting really fed up, and I think it's pushing people into community more because community is a way that we can lessen the burdens of this way of living.
Hmm.
And that's a really interesting conversation
Yeah.
in terms of how does community and communal living start to shift the landscape that we're in? And so there are really interesting examples of that happening all over right now. My hope is that that happens, and my hope is that that doesn't happen in a more expedited way because of another pandemic or something like it,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is what it
Because
feels like.
it has, as awful as COVID was, it has shifted the landscape exponentially.
Yeah. Of course, and I don't even think we understand how
No.
much.
No.
I don't think we'll understand until we're very old,
Uh-huh.
maybe. And even then, I think like 300 years from now, if we're still around, they'll
Yeah.
look back and be like, oh. But I think that push to a community is going to be an enormous part of it. And then also a redefining of boundaries between our identities and our roles in life.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a whole different conversation we won't get into, but when I was diagnosed, we were in lockdown,
Mm.
which is what made me go to the doctors in the first place, is because I've always thought I'd had raised glands.
Mm.
And then we're in lockdown, and so my wife's on maternity leave. I'm working from home. My youngest daughter's 8 months old, so she's not going. Well, she wasn't going to nursery anyway. She was at home. My eldest, who was 3 at the time, was not going to nursery. So why does it not, why do I feel that I've still not going anywhere, not seeing anyone, not catching anything? Why do my glands still feel raised? Anyway, the point I'm making is that what is the point I'm making? that not only is that a shift because of what happened, and we were all in, when you think of it now with football games, we just had the Euros over here with packed stadiums and whatever, and you kind of forget there was a time when they either didn't play or were playing behind closed doors because you just couldn't go out. And my daughter, so my youngest daughter was 8 months old when I was diagnosed. So the diagnosis aside, there's a whole generation of kids that didn't, for a period of time, didn't go to nursery and didn't mingle and didn't have that human interaction. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, where you had all these kids who were basically not locked up, but were
Pretty
confined.
close. Yeah.
Anyway, that's a whole different conversation. But
Yeah. It's really
um,
interesting. I think our understanding of the importance of community and connection is being highlighted. And right now, because we've been in and out of pandemic zone for a while, I think we haven't actually like felt kind of post-pandemic until recently. At least that's
yeah,
how it's over here. Seeing, I think the statistics that have started to come out around childhood depression, around I think this is a huge other tangent, but it's a subject I'm very passionate on, which is children and teenagers and screen time and
oh
what
really,
that does
yeah,
for depression and anxiety of adolescents
hmm
is extraordinary and terrifying. And so all of these things, I think we're kind of we're starting to actually get tangible results that we can work with and really understand in a concretized way
hmm
of what happens when we're isolated from each other, what happens when we replace in-person connection with screen time and these things that can actually they can feel connective and in many ways create a cascade of really negative responses in the minds of our youth and us.
hmm
Um, and so it'll be really fascinating to see
yeah.
what happens after that and what we've gleaned from it. And I hope what we can put into action as a result of what we've learned, which I think is a really hopeful way for us to view the pandemic in terms of what we can do from what we've learned.
Uh-huh. Okay, and we've sorted out the next episode that we're going to do, which is screen time, screen time for young people.
Please. Oh my God.
Cool. Okay, that's that sorted. What else? I think we better wrap it up soon. But I mean, it's 20 to 10.
Worried about your blood glucose. How we doing? We gotta get some food in you. You gotta
We talk careers. Right. Well, that's it. Okay. So I've got what? So if you don't feel you've covered this already, and I think we've covered, because we're in an hour and 40 minutes. What final piece of advice would you like to leave our listeners with today for good work-life balance?
I think that the thing that I always love to reiterate is that self-discipline when it comes to work-life balance is a myth. And if you think that the reason why you haven't come into balance is because you haven't tried hard enough, you will actually worsen that cycle because shame makes us hide from ourselves. It's not about self-discipline. And if you don't believe me, if you're listening to this and you're like, bullshit, then I would ask you to name the other people you know that have a really tough work-life balance. And I guarantee you they're incredibly self-disciplined.
Mhm.
They show up to their meetings. They show up for the people in their life. They are people who know how to get something done. It's not about self-discipline. It's about reorienting our priorities and believing that we have permission to belong to ourselves and to have a deeper understanding of what life can offer and chase that instead of chasing productivity and external accolades. So it's a different way of thinking about it, but I have to reiterate that because so many of us end our days with our heads on our pillow going, I'm fucking exhausted. I feel like I did a lot today, didn't get the main things that I wanted to done. And why doesn't my life feel satisfying?
Mhm.
And I should do better tomorrow. And it's not about doing better. And if it was about doing better, you would have done it. Compassion does not mean that you will work less hard in the future. It means that other doors that have been in the room the entire time will appear to you.
Alison, I think that is the perfect place to end. Thank you so much for giving up so much of your time.
It's
That has
so
been
fun.
absolutely fascinating. I've really enjoyed it, and I will definitely be getting
Hey.
in touch. Does this class as our initial session?
No, no. We'll still do
We
our
still
free
do. An hour and
call.
40
Yeah.
minutes wasn't long enough. We'll do another, but truly that was brilliant. Really enjoyed it. So
Oh, I love it.
thank you so much. And
I'm so grateful. You need to go to sleep.
I want to have my dinner.
You need to eat dinner and then you need to have wonderful dreams. That's what you
I
need.
will try my best. Alison,
My
thank you.
pleasure, Lee.
Okay, so a bit more from Alison there. I think we talked quite a lot last time about what Alison does, how to get in contact with her on her website. One thing she did mention there was, again, amongst the many things that she mentioned, ayahuasca, I think it's named as called.
Yes.
Yes. Now, I'm I'm tempted. I am tempted. If you need a shaman and it's just going to blow your mind and do weird things to you, it's my. Well, I'll tell you what. Look, again, I'm going off at tangents. When I did my cards with Dr. Jan in terms of what 5 cards were the hub of me, what were my core values, I remember that one of them was creativity. I remember one of them was curiosity.
Uh-huh.
Very curious person. So for no other reason than I wonder what that's like. I mean, I did mention it to Dr. Jan, and she said, yeah, it's basically magic mushrooms. I don't know whether that's true or not. I had not looked into it that much, but I'm quite tempted. Well, a sensible head as well. She said, it sounds like magic mushrooms, and you should, if you were even thinking about doing it, you should probably check with your oncologist whether it interferes with any of your current medication.
Yes, I think that would be sensible.
Wise words from Jan.
Yes, I think, does it not freak you out a little bit? The idea of it.
Oh, the idea of it or the actual thing? I think the thing actually freaks you out. Yeah, I think you go into, no, I'd love to do it.
Oh, I think it sounds terrifying. I'm a big wimp.
Anywho, so that was Alison. I will report back on ayahuasca. See, this is the thing. It puts me onto a to-do list. One of the things I have noticed when I was doing like the newsletter is out there, folks. Still available if you want to subscribe. We've got a massive to-do list of things that we've talked about in episodes that we've never revisited. So, for example, Paul, we're still waiting for Paul to do an ice bath or a cold water therapy challenge.
You'll be waiting a long time.
You don't reckon?
No, I don't think he'll do it. I don't think he'll do it.
Oh. But that's what the public want. They want to see him in a pair of Speedos wading into the water, screaming like it's cold.
I wouldn't be doing your ice bath thing.
No. But there's the thing. I just call it cold water therapy, right? Because the reason I say that is because obviously the barrel is now up and running. I don't know if you've seen that online, but the barrel, yes, I've now got my whiskey barrel set up. And yes, people call it an ice bath, and people do it. And when I did it like outdoors, when we were in January, it was like January the 2nd or whatever, they've got an outside plunge pool where we were staying. And yeah, that was about 3 degrees. So that is Baltic. But like the whiskey barrel at the minute, I've not got ice in it. I've not got ice in it. It's just out of the cold tap. So it's probably not that cold. It's probably, it's not bath temperature, and you still get that, it's enough to give your nervous system a shock because you still get that, as you're getting in. But it's probably about 15, 16 degrees. You still get that, and that's enough for me. I'm not suggesting that everyone goes in a 3-degree ice bath, but even having that shock of, say, 12 degrees, that's enough for you to go and get that benefit. But I was sat out there last night just chilling out for probably about 10 minutes.
You're not convincing me, but I'm not the one who has to do it. So
No.
I
Well,
do think the cold, sort of putting the cold shower on is good, but I am a bit of a wimp with it, so I tend to do it for a very short burst if I do it at all.
Okay, so from your perspective,
what
then
does
no.
it do for you? Is it like increases your blood flow, or?
I think Wim Hof describes it as like a mini workout for you. You've got miles and miles and miles. He says, it goes 65 times around the world or whatever, the amount of capillaries and arteries and whatever that you've got in your body. And because we live in living clothes, because we live in warm clothes and in warm houses and in air conditioned offices, and we're not exposed. We're very, very rarely exposed to any amount of cold, so our body is comfortable with an ambient temperature all the time. So to give your capillaries and whatever a workout, when you go into the cold, obviously everything contracts. All the miles and miles of capillaries and arteries and everything that you've got in your body contract, and then when you come out, expand again. You do get that feeling of euphoria, especially when it's cold. I certainly, and it seems to be a general thing, that you get that feeling of euphoria when you come out. I think it's, out of all the things that we've talked about, that is I mean, things, meditation helps and whatever, but if I could recommend one thing that really, really helps me, it's cold water therapy.
So interesting. But I guess that's the whole point of your podcast, isn't it? It's that what works for you. Because I don't know if it would work for me, but I've been doing the old Mena muesli and
Yes.
the She-Fab smoothie. You'll hear more about this in the episode with Charlotte, Her Majesty. But the smoothies in particular, that I'm committed to those now because I feel great. What I don't get now when I have one of those in the morning is the 3 p.m. slump.
Oh, really?
Yep.
You don't get that now?
Nope. I
No.
don't get that need to have a nap at 3 p.m. Just weird because I'm having it at maybe 8 in the morning. But it's doing whatever job it's doing. And it starts, I notice a difference immediately. So take that to the bank. And I like the Calm app. Other apps are available. I like this.
Oh, okay.
I do the daily Calm, but I do
Yeah.
it at night. And that's how I get myself to sleep.
Cool.
I've got a spinny kind of brain, as most of us do. So also, as well as the daily Calm app. So it's supposed to do it in the morning, but I like it in the evening. I usually drift off because it's only 10 minutes. So I'm usually asleep within the 10 minutes, which is brilliant. If I'm not, I do the alphabet game, which is how I fall asleep.
What's the alphabet game?
See, I'm putting this out there because I think you could try it. I think everyone could try it. Good game for the kids.
Okay.
All it is you pick a theme of some kind, and then you've got to for example, actors.
Yeah.
Actors, and then you work way through the alphabet. So, and you you're breathing. So you breathe in and go in your head A, and then out, Al Pacino. And B, Brad Pitt. I also make it complicated. I will do film titles, but they have to be one-word film titles.
Okay.
I do Mariah Carey song titles.
I'd struggle A to Z Mariah Carey.
Love a bit of Mazzacaz. I'm not hear a word against Mimi. But yeah, so you do something like that, and it's just like counting sheep, really. It's a you're regulating your breathing, and you're taking your mind off of anything else. And the thing is, you don't stop, you don't get frustrated. So if you can't think of a B,
I was going to say, you don't have to hold your breath.
Yeah, no, you keep going. You just move on
until you can think of a B, or you just go on to C.
No, just go on to C, because then you're starting to set your mind off.
Right, yeah.
So the key is to not stop and just keep the breathing going. And
I'm still trying to think of a one-word film title beginning with A. I got stuck on the first one.
Alive. Alfie.
Oh, yeah.
Ants.
B.
Batman.
Forever. Batman Returns.
Batman?
Lots of Batman. Casablanca.
Good one.
D. Let's not go through the whole alphabet. But yes.
You see what I mean? It's really engaging.
Yes.
It's a really engaging little game. And if both of us are not able to sleep, we'll ping pong it.
Yeah, I don't think this gives him an out in terms of not doing the cold water go, well, I'll do the alphabet game instead. We'll do that live on air, the alphabet game. I still think we need to, I think I probably need to come across and take him by the hand and lead him in his Speedos into the sea. And you should film it.
I'll be filming it if it absolutely happens. I definitely will be doing that. I think you'd be more likely to get him over to your house and persuade him. What you need to do is actually get him over to your house and have a few drinks and a bit of dinner, and then get him into your whiskey barrel.
At least if it's in the whiskey barrel and he's had a few drinks, he can't drown in there.
Exactly.
Safety first, Gail. Safety first.
He's very tall as well. I
That's
think,
true.
imagine if you concertinaed him up
Mm.
as small as a human possibly could go, he still wouldn't fit all the way in your whiskey barrel.
How tall is he?
6'5".
Is he?
Yeah,
He might. Is he really?
yes.
Wow. Well,
He's a big old stretch of water, that
he
one.
is a big old lanky string. 6'5". But yeah, if you had a tall and narrow one for 6'5" people, you'd need probably a little step ladder to get. Mind you, unless his legs are so long because he's so lanky, he could just stride over it like the BFG. There, you externally laugh there. I don't know whether it got picked up on the sound, but on the video, you definitely externally laughed. We got one out of you.
It was good. Yeah, I just had a wee vision of him just doing
With
his
his
wee water
trumpet.
therapy before he strides off for a night
Yeah.
of catching dreams.
Yeah, I'm sorry. For those who haven't read the BFG, because we read the BFG quite a lot with the kids at our age. But yes, the BFG has a trumpet. It has a little bag and then a trumpet. I just imagine Paul now striding over hedges with his little trumpet. What an image that is. That's not a euphemism.
He would be an excellent BFG.
He would be a brilliant BFG. We should put that out there. If people are casting for the BFG for any performances, then please get in touch with the show. Likewise, I still haven't had much take up on my quiz hosting. So again, either Paul is the BFG or my quiz hosting, please do get in touch. It's not a seamless segue, but going on to we discussed in the last episode about convenience foods. And obviously we've had the previous episode with Juliana, the nutritionist, and I saw online they did a poll of the 10 worst ultra processed foods.
Okay.
And I'm going to run down the
I
list.
think I saw something about that.
There's
Yeah.
some quite interesting. I mean, there's some things that you go, yeah, that's obvious.
Mhm.
There's other things where are not so obvious, which I think ties in with what we've been discussing lately. So if you'll indulge me,
Okay.
I will read out the list of 10 worst ultra processed foods. Number 1, energy drinks.
Oh, but yes.
Yes, consumed regularly make the
Horrible.
heart work harder and faster and may have serious health implications. Number 2, mass-produced bread.
Well, yes, who was it that in a previous episode? Charlotte talked about that. We bought a bread maker off the back of that and have used it. And it sits in a drawer gathering dust. But it's yeah, that was really interesting what she had to say about the bread. So
I made a loaf of bread yesterday in the bread maker.
We need to get back on it.
But it's so easy because all you do is literally just pour the stuff in. You go flour, half a kilogram of flour, a bit of sugar, a bit of salt, bit of water, yeast, press a button to start. That's it. Well, it says here, it typically includes additives for the purpose of speeding up the manufacturing process and extending shelf life. Examples, and again, Charlotte said this at the time, that if you have bought bread, it lasts in the bread bin for weeks. If I make homemade bread, couple of days tops.
Yes.
So that's because of the examples include emulsifiers, preservatives, and sugar. Mass-produced bread is said to make up as much as 11% of the calories we eat.
And it's terrible because you think when you're getting like a brown bread or seeded batch, you think it's better, and it's not.
And it's not. Number 3, breakfast cereals.
Do you know what really doesn't surprise me about that? Even the healthy ones, because I said I've been having the Mena muesli.
Yes.
For the menopause symptoms. The cleanness of the taste of that it's really nice. I'm trying to remember what's in it. But there's absolutely nothing that's not natural. There's oats and sort of like sultanas and cranberries and edible flowers and bee pollen. Yes. And it's initially quite jarring because it's not got that artificial sweetness that you even think you would get in a sort of store-bought muesli that you'd think would be good, and you really taste the lack of crap in a good way. So it's very interesting. You can taste how clean it is. So yeah.
Right, number 4, hot dogs. I don't think we need to really delve into that. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Do you love a hot dog though?
Number 5. Now here you go. I'm going to shock you with number 5.
Okay.
Vegan, in inverted commas, meat.
Do you know that doesn't
That
shock me
doesn't
at
surprise you. It
all.
surprised me
No.
then.
Because what's in it? You know, I quite like it. I've got a little corn mozzarella and pesto escalope, and I really like them. But there's no plants in it.
So see, to me, I would go, well, that's good food. That's a healthy food. That's a healthy alternative.
I
But like
mean,
you say, you read the thing here, the highly engineered products are designed to mimic the texture, flavor, and appearance of conventional meat. And it's, other it's full of additives. I can't even, methylcellulose are used to create a meat-like bite, while carrageenan improves sliceability, monosodium glutamate emulsifiers, stabilizers are also used to adjust the taste and texture of plant protein. I would have thought, if you're eating corn, or what, alternatives, you'd think, well, that's plant-based. That's good. I'm making good choices. And it's on the list of, no, highly processed, mate. You shouldn't be eating that.
Because well, let's face it, they're kind of convenience foods as well.
Yeah.
And again, believe me, I do eat convenience foods, so I'm not judging. Like, say, I've got my week corn things in the freezer, but plant-based. So I had for my dinner tonight, I had spaghetti. This might sound a bit gross. Paul will not touch this with a barge pole. Whole wheat spaghetti, and you get a bit of Greek yogurt, and you mix it with a little bit of pasta water, and you caramelize a bunch of onions. Just fling all that together.
Then add some pineapple on the top.
No.
No pineapple.
I'm telling you, I was skeptical. I thought I'll give it a bash one day, and it's now one of my favorite meals. And it's dead easy, dead quick. 3 ingredients, boom, done. If you want to throw a bit of mozzarella on it, whatever. But aye, that's what you're wanting to do if you want to do a plant-based meal. You're not going to have.
I won't lie, girl. That sounds grim.
It's so tasty. I'm telling you. Don't listen to him, podcast listeners. Somebody try it.
Well,
and email in and tell these guys that it's super tasty because no one.
I will lay down the gauntlet. Right, you're gonna have to come over to the house at some point, and if Paul goes in my barrel, I will eat your concoction of pasta,
like oniony yogurt pasta,
oniony yogurty pasta. Good grief!
And
he's got the better deal.
You'll eat my pasta and then you'll eat yours.
Number 6, chicken nuggets.
Again,
fairly obvious.
There.
Number 7, reformulated potato snacks, such as Pringles, again, full of monosodium glutamate, hydrolyzed protein powders, and glucose syrup.
It's funny, you never really think about Pringles, but when you do think about them, it's like it's not really a crisp, is it?
No, it says it. I know I said I wasn't going to read it all out. I'm now reading it all out. But it said during the manufacture of the dough, in inverted commas, is rolled, pressed and cut into stackable shapes. These are then fried in hot oil and coated with flavorings. The high temperature potentially generates a substance called acrylamide exposure, which may be carcinogenic, although the findings from human studies is inconsistent. But again, are you going to take the risk? I love a Pringle.
It's not my favourite. If there are Pringles there, I will wallop them down with the best of them, but it would never be my crisp of choice.
But if they're carcinogenic or potentially carcinogenic, would you take the risk?
I could live without Pringles.
Maybe that should be the poll. Can you live without Pringles?
You could just lick the Pringle and throw the Pringle away.
I don't think that helps. I don't think that, I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to eat the reformulated potato bit. I'm just going to lick the flavorings off. I don't think that's going to be. Yeah, I wouldn't. As a healthy balanced diet, I wouldn't suggest just licking the flavoring off your Pringles of your choice. Number 8, margarine.
Ah, yes.
Often marketed as heart healthy, these spreads are highly processed. Number 9, vegan cheese.
Oh, yeah, oh God, vegan cheese, I just, no, it's absolutely wrong. It's the worst. Vegan cheese and vegan mayonnaise.
But again, because it's got vegan on it, that kind of, I kind of assumed it's healthy. Number 10, again, no surprise, ready meals.
Ah.
There you go. So Yeah, no, I was just interested that there was a few vegan options. I'm going, really? I thought why? But yeah, they're highly processed, highly bad for you.
I think this using this term plant-based, I think people are getting
Mm,
awful, they're throwing it about
hmm
a lot, and just saying things are plant-based when there is not a plant to be
No.
had among them.
Well, there's only one last thing I was going to say, which was just to confirm from a previous episode that Richard Rankin is not Ian Rankin's son. So Richard Rankin, who plays Rebus is he the young Rebus, or is it just Rebus?
Yes, it's sort of reimagined Rebus.
Is it any good?
It's very good, and it's not my kind of thing. I don't really do detective-y, policey shows. It's just not my bag. And we watched it because everyone was sort of saying we should, and I really enjoyed it. I thought Richard Rankin was excellent.
But no, Richard is not his son. He was born Richard Harris. But when he applied for his equity card, he started using his mother's maiden name, Rankin, because he didn't want to get confused with the other Richard Harris.
Not even if you didn't want to get confused, he couldn't. You can't register with the same name.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, you can. This is why, here we go, trivia for you. Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
This is Michael Keaton because there was already a Michael Douglas, which is his real name.
Get out of town. Right, I'm Googling that right now.
It's true.
My God, he was born Michael John Douglas,
There you go.
professionally known as Michael Keaton.
Mm-hmm.
We need a poll. So, having talked about ultra processed food, what is your ultra processed dirty secret?
Yeah, you're guilty.
What's your go-to, your guilty pleasure? Yeah. Gail, what's yours?
Pot noodle.
A pot noodle.
A pot noodle or a super noodle.
Right, okay.
I think I don't feel quite so guilty about super noodles, even though they're really bad. But
They've got super in the title, so they can't be that bad.
but I had some the lunchtime today. But a pot noodle, a sweet and sour or nice and spicy, which I don't think you get anymore. But a sweet and sour pot noodle, yes. There's no
I
better than a pot noodle.
like the mushroom ones. The green
Chicken
one.
and mushroom.
Yeah.
You must be the only one. Chicken and mushroom, the worst one.
No, that's my favorite.
Nah.
Okay, I will have to investigate the poll and see whether it lets you put other and then type in your own dirty little. Let's see how dirty our listeners are with their little nutritional or non-nutritional secrets.
Face up. Tell us everything.
I think it's probably bedtime. Separate houses, separate beds, as me and Paul always say. Thank you so much for stepping into the breach. I'm very much looking forward to listening to the menopause one coming up next.
Me too. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Get well soon. Thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time for some more Mind Cake.
Bye.
Bye.
Let's start a podcast about our mental health for no good reason why. Let's call it Mind Cake.
We got there in the end.